Joining me right now is former federal prosecutor Alyse Adamson. It's good to see you again. Thanks for coming in. I want more on what is in those photos. We were showing some of it. If you have a handwritten note with what appears to be a shopping list for a USB card, a digital camera, a hot meal, water bottles, a trash bag. Also, and that might be it right there, a hand-drawn map of Altoona, Pennsylvania, where he was eventually arrested, and that to-do list I had mentioned. How significant is it that these photos are being released?
Yeah, Kate, this is a very interesting question because all that we're seeing has to do with what Mangione did after the offense. He's being charged with this premeditated murder of Brian Thompson in New York in early December. I believe it's December 4th. But if you look at that hand-drawn note in particular, the dates are after the offense, December 8th, December 9th, where he's scribbling about a survival kit. So the significance here is more of contextualizing what Mangione's state of mind was immediately following the incident than as direct evidence of the crime itself. It is clear from this evidence, at least to me in my experience, that he was planning on running away and not being found for some time, that survival kit. I do want to point out that that USB drive that's written down on the note, there was a USB drive found around Mangione's neck at his time of arrest. That's one of the items that his attorneys are trying to suppress. And we do not know what is on that drive. So it is possible that a piece of evidence that was recovered is actually directly bearing on the offense. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, there are clearly tons of questions on this. And let's talk about what his attorneys are trying to do. You talk about that USB card, also including the murder weapon. They're trying to get this evidence thrown out. They're trying to make sure that it's never seen by a jury. Part of what they're arguing is that he was questioned before being read his Miranda rights upon his initial arrest. Do you think that they will be successful here?
Well, Kate, I mean, they have to try. So what happened here is what's called a search incident to arrest. It is very common. When somebody is being arrested on probable cause, like Mangione was, police officers are allowed to pat them down and search items that are in their immediate, we call it wingspan, or in their control, for officer safety, to make sure there's not a weapon on them. And that is what police say they did. There was a backpack right next to Mangione where that firearm was recovered. Now, the defense isn't making a meritless argument, Kate, because a lot of police officers responded to the scene during this interaction. So there is a question as to whether or not they really needed to do this for officer safety. But I can tell you it is usually routine to search an item that a defendant has post-arrest. So there is a high likelihood that ultimately this stuff would be admissible. But just one quick note on that as well. This isn't really a whodunit. This is more of a why did he do it? So even if all of that evidence was suppressed, Kate, the government may still be able to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, which is different than in other cases where they need all of that evidence to really prove it was the defendant who committed the crime.
I was actually going to ask you about that, Alyse, because if what is contained in the backpack, let's just say the murder weapon, right? If that, the way the prosecutors describe it is that what was in the backpack is the means and motive for the alleged crime. If that is not allowed in, you're saying that is not make or break for the prosecution's case?
I'm saying that in this particular case, it wouldn't necessarily be fatal. They have the offense on video. And we know that there's a lot of other evidence that was developed after Mangione's arrest linking him to this crime. Now, that being said, it is certainly an uphill battle for a prosecutor to prove an offense when they don't have the murder weapon, essentially. It's just not impossible. And again, in this case, where seemingly from what we know about the case, Mangione made a lot of missteps because they're able to piece this together, videos of him in New York, pictures of him in that hostel, and then, of course, the actual offense on video. Prosecutors would still be able to proceed, where in other cases with a suppression like this, the case would ultimately have to be dismissed because there is no more evidence. Uphill battle, but not impossible.
Alyse, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for coming in.